Hello friends, this your friend Saiyan Nexus Audio Fanfic, and we are back in new fanfic. What if a documentary filmmaker entered Dragon Ball Z Par 3? Hurry Krillin. Secrets of the Temple. 3 weeks later. Magic always had costs. A wise man once said that, his bloody awful poetry be damned. But it wasn't just magic, everything had a cost. Power had a cost. Skill too. The idea of the prodigy that one day discovered they were amazing at something was a lie. Yes, at times there were people that had a hidden talent, but the smart ones, the ones that did all they could to go and evolve. They worked so very hard to take that hidden talent and master it. They weren't happy with finding a diamond in the rough, they had it cut and polished until it sparkled and gleamed. The same was true of everything. A singer strengthened their voice. A writer wrote and wrote until they had so honed their skill that the words flowed from their mind to their fingertips to the page. A sports legend practiced so that everything became second nature. Goku didn't roll out of bed and march instantly into a fight. He trained. A lot. It was something that a lot of people missed when they heard him talk about training. He did it not merely because training was fun for him, but because he wanted to push himself to get better. Use it or lose it. Fortune teller Baba had told me I had a natural talent for magic. The scroll had stated I could become something powerful. So, whenever I could, I practiced my magic. Sun is shining in the sky, there ain't a cloud in sight. I murmured as my alarm began to sound and reached out my hand, focusing on my glasses, feeling the energy well in my hand as I attempted the summoning spell I had been working on for the last week. It was apparently one of the most basic spells that a mage could learn, and Baba had told me that before I could learn anything else I had to learn that. Baba, in her own coarse and insulting way, had helped me understand exactly what my magic felt like. Everyone was different when it came to their magic, but there was a basic sensation that tended to be the same for all that practiced magic. While it would be a while yet before I was able to determine just what my specialty was, I knew that I had magic in me and that drawing it forth was like holding a rumbling hose in my hand. The shake. The tremble. Even as my hand remained steady, it was there. I just needed to. I heard a crack and I just had enough time to yelp before the large beautiful bay window that overlooked the jungle shattered into a million pieces as it hurtled towards me, forcing me to throw the blankets over my head to protect myself as the jagged little shards slammed into me. They rained down upon the covers, cutting into them but thankfully leaving me unharmed. It stopped rainin', everybody's in the play, and don't you know? It's a beautiful new day, hey hey. There was a pounding of feet and I poked my head out just in time to see Tien burst in, looking about wildly before he narrowed his eyes. Again? He asked, breath coming out in a cloud thanks to how cold I kept my room. I am going to figure thising out, I muttered as I carefully folded the blankets so that I didn't spill more glass on the floor, reaching over to turn off the alarm. Already several little cleaning robots were emerging from their hiding spots in the walls, sucking up glass and making a path for me while others zoomed out to measure the window frame so I could get another one made. Why is it so cold in here? Tien complained, rubbing his arms. I sleep better with heavy blankets, I commented, rolling out of bed and removing the heavy pajama shirt I was wearing. I had learned that most of the Z fighters had no problem with nudity. You go to the bathroom late one night only to find Goku eating some ham in the hallway and you get over any feelings of modesty real quick, especially when his reaction is to ask you if you want some, so I didn't think twice as I slipped out of the thick pajama bottoms and set about getting dressed, even with Tien just standing there. He too didn't say a word as I set about getting dressed while the robots continued to clean up my mess. You're up late. Usually you are already midway through your run at this point. Of course, for all of us, up late meant waking up when the sun was just beginning to rise. Bulma was the only one that slept in past 7 and I was usually up by 6. Goku though was always out and about by 4 a.m., wanting to do several laps around the island before the day really began. Even Gohan was an early riser. eager to get as much training in as he could before Chi-Chi got him back to his studies. Xiaosu and I are doing some nighttime training, Tian stated simply, and I didn't push. While Krillin was the one that really didn't trust me, Tian was still a bit standoffish to me. Not rude but not going out of his way to be overly friendly. I pulled on a pair of thin gray slacks that were more like silk lounge pants than my normal jeans, but I'd found that the island could get rather hot during the day, so it was nice to have something that breathed. A white t-shirt was next before I held out my hand and focused on my socks, which wiggled and squirmed like snakes but didn't fly to my palm like I wanted. At least you didn't destroy anything. Getting them to move was a win, honestly, I admitted as I finally gave up and grabbed the socks, sticking them in my pocket to put on later. Baba claims it's good that it's either all or nothing with me, means that I have the magic I just need to learn to master the finer points. We stepped out of my bedroom and instantly I felt the heat of the research center even though I knew Bulma ran the air conditioning all the time. Don't use that during breakfast, will you? Tian warned. I want to eat my food, not wear it. Considering I know what you'd do to me if I attempted that. Yeah, you have nothing to worry about. I flashed him a smile, but Tian just rolled his eyes. Still planning to use the scroll in 2 weeks. Yeah, Tian said as we made our way to the dining room. I think Xiaosu and I are just about where we need to be to begin considering new techniques and styles. He paused. I hope Krillin is okay. I wanted to assure him that Krillin would be, but I also knew that it would come off as patronizing if I did. So instead I settled with, me too, as we made our way down the stairs. Already we could smell the food the cooking droids had prepared for us, and hear Chi-Chi scolding the machines. No, you aren't adding nearly enough pepper to the eggs, she complained. And why are you undercooking the bacon? That would be my fault. I called out to her. I like my bacon soft, not crunchy. Besides, that's my turkey bacon, they haven't done the pork bacon yet. Chi-Chi frowned at that but relented. Fine, have your ham pretending to be bacon. Technically it's turkey pretending to be ham pretending to be bacon, I teased as I moved to begin serving myself. We'd ended up all deciding that the best way to handle the meals was to do it buffet style, as that allowed everyone to eat when they wanted to. There was no risk of food going to waste because Goku always went on his run while the rest of us ate and would take over clearing away the tables while the rest of us set about starting our own days. What do you have planned? I asked Chi-Chi as I grabbed some danishes as well as some fruit. Making sure Goku and Piccolo don't kill each other, Chi-Chi stated with a shake of her head. I swear those two getting along has led to more near-death incidents than when they were enemies. Don't let Piccolo hear you say that, Tien commented. You know how his pride is. We all grimaced at that little reminder. While he wasn't actively trying to kill us all, Piccolo was being dragged kicking and screaming into being part of the group. Any attempts to get him to join in on activities at night were shunned. And it wasn't even anything that extreme. The gang wasn't one to play board games or watch movies, usually it was just sitting around talking or listening to music while everyone did their own thing. But Piccolo refused to be a part of it, going off on his own. Honestly, the only one, much to my hidden amusement, that could get him to break out of his shell was Gohan. The little boy was smart about it, careful too, but he still would go up to Mr. Piccolo and ask him for help with something or if he could join him. He was getting really good at meditating, and Chi-Chi had commented how much more focused Gohan had become ever since he'd started. What are all of you doing up so late? Bulma asked with a yawn, padding into the dining room. She was wearing an oil-stained tank top and cargo pants, her hair down up in a messy bun and grease smeared on her cheek. She snagged a blueberry muffin, ripping off a hunk of it and popping it into her mouth. It's morning, Chi-Chi said, her tone a bit frosty. It is, Bulma said, brow furrowing before she looked towards one of the windows and spotted the rising sun. Oh, I've been up all night. I should get to bed, She frowned though, and rather than heading towards the stairs that led to the bedrooms and instead made her way back down the hallway she had come from. Though I should check on the laser printer. I swear, Chi-Chi said, shaking her head, I don't know what she is doing down there, but it would be nice if she were actually working like the rest of us were to get ready for Raditz's return. Who said she isn't? I asked, a bit of bite to my words that had Chi-Chi lean back in surprise as I moved to follow after Bulma. More to life than punching things, but guess it was too much to expect any of them to remember that. Where are you going? Tien called out. To help out the slacker. I snapped in annoyance. Chaos, Chi-Chi said, concerned. She hurried over to me, pressing a hand on my shoulder. What's wrong? What did I say? You guys honestly don't see it? I asked, turning back to Tien and Chi-Chi, staring them both down. You really think she's been slacking off for the last few weeks? Chi-Chi just stared at me, brow furrowed. It's Bulma, that's what she does. Tien nodded. She isn't much of a fighter, so there isn't much she could do when it comes to actually training, but she could be finding something to do. Like clean up after the big strong men. I snapped in annoyance. I can't fight, should I be running around passing you towels? You're trying to help though, Chi-Chi pointed out with a soft smile. You are learning magic. And Bulma is helping as well, I argued. She is killing herself down there trying to find ways to help us. Because more than anyone on this island, Yamcha's death hurt her the most. You two have no idea what she is doing down there. Neither do you, Tien pointed out. Right, I admitted. But I have faith in her. You two should as well. You're right, Chi-Chi finally said. I'm sorry. I'm not the one you need to apologize to. I held up my hand. And you aren't doing it now. She won't even remember it. Go handle your training, both of you. I'm going to get Science Girl and force her to sleep. I mean it, Chaos, I'm sorry. I let out a sigh. I know. Chi-Chi didn't mention that I never said, I forgive you. MC, MC, MC. Collate Jungle. I mean no offense, but, are you sure you wish to continue on, sir? The guide asked while the porters helped the rest of the tour group get their camp packed away. People do not go much farther normally, this is as much of a taste of the wild as they like. Krillin smirked at that, grabbing his pith helmet, giving it a flip so that it spun in the air before he caught it with his free hand and pressed it on top of his head. He had his GI tucked away in his pack, having decided to dress in typical explorer gear, light tan shirt and matching shorts, hiking boots, and long white socks. It honestly made him feel like an adventurer for one of the old pulp movies that Roshi swore up and down were far better than those dang newfangled films. I'll be fine, he assured the guide. The man in question frowned before leaning in closer, whispering in Krillin's ear. Sir, I must insist you not do this. I know we claim that there are thrills and dangers when you travel with us, but it is all fake. The lions we stumbled upon yesterday were my pets Papa and Mira. Pussycats, both of them. None of us were in danger. Same with those falling trees, they weren't even real. Made of papier-mâché. The people we bring out here, they want to be able to say they went on an adventure. We give them that, but it isn't real. He gestured at the other members of the group, who were standing about gawking at the trees and pointing at brightly colored birds but otherwise doing nothing to get the camp closed up. Krillin had to admit that if any of them had been left in a city park they would have had trouble surviving, let alone the jungle. The guide gently reached out and squeezed Krillin's hand. Please sir, the moment you leave the path you will be heading into the real jungle. We will be unable to protect you. Krillin though merely nodded, taking out 500 zeni and passing it over to the man for his trouble. He'd brought much of his life savings with him, just in case he needed to pay for supplies, and it physically hurt to pass along even the 500. I understand, and thank you for getting this far. For another 50,000 we'll notify your next of kin. The man called as Krillin adjusted his pack one last time before heading out. Dumb bastard, the man muttered under his breath before calling out, "All right everyone, let's get going. Remember to stay on the trail, we already lost one person because they decided to wander off." That got the rest of the tourists murmuring and talking, and the guide shook his head. At the very least, the little bald fool wandering off to his death would allow him to milk some more coin out of the rubes. For Krillin, he waited until he was about 20 minutes away from the camp before he allowed himself to lift off the ground, hovering for a moment before zipping straight up above the trees, causing several of the small chittering monkeys that had been in the branches to scatter, screeching and protesting his intrusion. "Sorry," he called out, the monkeys just shaking their little fists at him in response. "Rude," he muttered to himself as he broke through the canopy, looking about. "All right, so I'm looking for the Temple of the Repentant Miser." He began to slowly spin in a circle. "So, there has to be something that will let me know where it is. Maybe some clues carved into a rock or some trees that have different flowers that point to." He had spun 180 degrees when he saw the large stone temple bursting out of the jungle. Huh. He tilted his head as he considered what he was seeing before giving a shrug and moving to land. Won't look a gift horse in the mouth. Krillin walked through the jungle for about 20 minutes, taking in the sights and making sure there weren't any signs that he should head a particular way, underground passage, hidden tunnel, side entrance, that sort of thing. But there was nothing, and soon he could see the temple as he drew near. But that wasn't the first thing he spotted. No, what he came upon first was an old one-story hut, barely managing to hold itself together, leaning against a massive banana tree. The windows were open, but he couldn't see much of the inside due to how dark it was in there. The porch had once been covered, but part of the roof had caved in, though the damage had been cleaned up and swept away. That was the odd thing, for how run down everything was, there was a sense of cleanliness to it. It wasn't dirty. There weren't debris piles lying about. At once someone had put very little care into it, and a ton of care. And I think I know who that someone is, Krillin thought to himself as he spotted a wiry man wearing a simple t-shirt and shorts, a crooked straw hat plunked on his head as he lay in a hammock with a few frayed spots. "Hello," he called out. "Hello," the man said, his voice a raspy thing, like he hadn't had a chance to use it in a while. The man lifted his hat up and looked at him for a moment. "Name's Barley. I'm Krillin. Don't care unless you have some common sense in your head." That made Krillin blink. And if I do? Then you'll stop here, chat with me for a bit, and not bother heading up the trail to that giant eyesore in the distance." Krillin frowned at that. "I'm seeking the Temple of the Repentant Miser." Barley laughed at that. "Everyone who comes by is. Let me let you in on a secret, Sonny. All you'll find if you keep heading along that path is a tourist trap." "Well, I still need to go," Krillin said forcefully. "Suit yourself," Barley said with a laugh. "By the time you leave, we'll see which of us is richer." Krillin scoffed at that and continued along his way, finding that past the old man's shack there was a path that had been well cared for, making the walk far easier. The trees began to thin out, and soon he found himself standing not on the hard-packed earth but rather smooth tile, looking at the temple in awe. It was ancient, made from great tan stone blocks that had paint applied to the etchings within them so that there was a wild mass of different swirls and arcs. It was at least 10 stories tall, with several great towers and a massive pyramid-like structure that made up the main building. White fountains that depicted whales and fish leaping from the waves and shooting off streams of water were all over. "Wow," Krillin whispered as he walked under an archway, twisting about to try and take everything in. "This is, wow." He smiled to himself as he continued to walk, only to let out an oomph when he collided with someone. Ow. That was, oh man. He looked down to find a thin tall man wearing seafoam-colored robes lying at his feet, several books lying scattered about him. "I am so sorry," Krillin exclaimed, hurrying to help the man up. At once he remembered what life had been like at Orin Temple, and the bullying and punishments he would have received for being so clumsy. Let me help you. It is more than fine, the monk said, voice calm and serene as Krillin helped him to his feet. I understand how these things can happen. This place is a lot to take in, isn't it? I'll say, Krillin said. Honestly, when I was told to find this place, I thought it would be some abandoned ruins filled with traps. That caused the monk to laugh, a soft sound that barely lingered on the air. Oh, I can see that. But my brothers and I work hard to ensure that it is maintained. He gave a low bow. I am Brother Itat and I welcome you here, traveler. Krillin quickly mimicked Brother Itat's bow. Thank you for the welcome. I'm glad to at last be here. You see, there is a terrible threat. And you have come to look at our secret texts. Yes, I have. Krillin stated, delighted that things were going so well. If you could just tell me where I can find them. But of course, the monk said with a gentle smile. A guided tour is only 1688 zeni. Oh. Krillin quickly dug into his wallet and pulled out the bills, passing them over to Brother Itat, who counted them out before tucking them into his pocket. Show me those texts. Of course, the monk said before turning towards the entrance. But in order to understand how the texts came to be, you need to understand the history of this place. You see, while my brothers and I first began caring for this place 15 years ago, the grounds are much older. We believe that they were first built in the year 317. But you can see from the fountains that there has been much development. Krillin frowned as the man began to tell him about the architecture of the place. I want to see those texts. The sooner I can read them over, the sooner I can figure out how to use them in order to help against Raditz. I don't have time for this. He narrowed his eyes a bit. Unless this is some kind of test. He quickly realized that must have been the answer. It is. This is a test they put everyone who wants to see their hidden knowledge. They want you to know about the history of this place so you'll respect what the texts say. Well, I'm ready. Bring it on. MC. Was that all because of what happened with Bulma? Isko asked, joining me as I moved down the stairs to Bulma's work area. Because I get the sense you might be frustrated about other things, sir. Yeah, I admitted, deciding that I didn't feel like lying to Isko, mostly because the robot would call me out for it. The Bulma thing really bugs me, but I wouldn't have snapped if it weren't for. I held out my hand and wiggled my fingers. Your ability to masturbate here. No, I snapped. Are you sure? Because with so many people around I can see it being awkward for you. Doesn't stop Roshi, I groused. I swear he's gained 10 pounds of muscle mass in his arms already thanks to that tablet. Isko shuddered at that, which was a full-frame shake for him that also might have been something being off-balanced in his gyros, it was hard to tell. It's this magic, I muttered. I get it, Isko, I really get it. Goku had to train for years in order to get where he is. Same with Tien and Xiaosu and Roshi. Even Chi-Chi. I wasn't going to discover a quick way to suddenly be able to throw spells around. Under my breath I muttered, I tried. The scroll of knowledge had been no help. I had asked it several times if there was a way I could speed learning how to use magic, trying to find a way to make up the gap in my knowledge and the other's skills, only to be told, practice was my best move. The gang was being great about it. When they'd learned that I had the potential for magic, they'd grown excited and encouraged me. Chi-Chi stated I could learn all sorts of healing and protection spells. Tien and Roshi had both glanced at fortune teller Baba and mentioned how they hoped I was a bit more reliable, and of course Goku had been all about me knowing different ways to fight that would help him get stronger. Which only made me feel more like a failure that after 3 weeks I couldn't do a damn thing. I should be making some progress, I complained. Baba told me that it was good that I could actually perform the summoning spell. I believe her exact words were, well, you are only mostly useless like everyone else on this island. Right, I said dryly. But I have no control over it. It's all too powerful. It's like trying to drive a car and the gas pedal and brakes are just all or nothing. I looked at my hand, imagining the magic that was swirling in my veins to appear so I could yell at it for being a bastard. But nothing happened and I finally let out a frustrated sigh. So I'm on edge and took it out on the others. Isco was silent for a moment. Perhaps one could be both right and wrong in this situation, sir. You did take out your frustrations on the others, but you also stated things that needed to be said. Bulma is hurting and she is trying to distract herself through her work. The others just haven't noticed it because they have grown far too used to her ways and thus believe that this is just Bulma being Bulma. But she needs help, and needs the others to understand that she is trying to find ways to assist. They take advantage of her far too much, sir. Wow, Isco. You really care about Bulma, don't you? She is the only one that can repair me, sir. My motherboard didn't build no fool. You think I am going to trust any of you meatbags to get me up and running? Or give me all the upgrades I want? And there it is, I commented. Death lasers, sir. Death lasers. Right, Isco. And arms that can easily crush skulls. Right, Isco. And, I get it, I grumped only to pause. I'm still listed as pet, correct? You are, sir. If you keep it up I might use your for breeding. Wonderful, I jested. Come on, let's check on Bulma. MC, MC, MC. And that ends our tour, Brother Itat stated as they arrived back at the entrance archway. I hope that this has given you a better understanding of all my brothers and I do to maintain the tranquility and beauty of this place. Krillin sagged with relief. He'd his best to pay attention but, it seemed like every stone and tile in the entire complex had a long backstory that he just had to be told about. They'd spent 10 minutes looking at a single step because of all the interesting history that it had. But it will all be worth it when I get to those texts, he thought to himself. According to the scroll of knowledge, reading those texts will give me the knowledge I need to be a better fighter. I'm not for sure what I'm going to learn. Maybe some kind of new attack or a special ability. Something that will help me become stronger and be able to take out that monster Raditz. He clenched his hands into fists. I just know it. This is going to be it. I thank you for visiting us, Brother Itat said, giving Krillin a bow. Only to begin walking away. Brother Itat. Krillin called out. Yes. The monk said, turning back around. Did you wish to take the tour again? No, no, Krillin exclaimed, waving his hands about wildly. All toured out. Then what might I do for you? Well, it's about the sacred texts you keep here. Yes, the sacred text. They are very important, sought after by many who come here. It is our duty to care for them. It is a very interesting process. We have special brushes for cleaning the spine and Brother Ade makes an oil that preserves the pages. Actually, Krillin said, cutting him off, and I mean no offense, but I did come to actually learn the knowledge they hold. Brother Itat slowly nodded at that. Of course. You wish to read them. Yes, I do, Krillin said in relief, thrilled that the man was finally getting it. Brother Itat stared at him for several long moments, clearly considering Krillin and judging him before motioning for him to follow. For a moment Krillin worried that he was being taken on another tour, but after a few moments the monk stopped and pointed at another member of their group who was sitting on a bench sewing some fabric under a leafy tree. You'll need to take to Brother Ickers. He will be able to assist you in your goal. Thank you, Krillin said, remembering to give a quick bow before rushing over to the other monk, who looked up from his work. Are you Brother Ickers? I was told that I needed to see you about seeing your sacred texts. The monk smiled, dipping his head low. I am Brother Ickers. And you are correct, I am the one you must speak to if you wish to learn the secrets of our temple. No one is allowed to enter the sacred room without my permission. He set aside the cloth he had been stitching. That's great, Krillin said, turning towards the temple. I really need to. But the monk suddenly grabbed him by the shoulder, holding him back. Oh, you can't just march into our sacred shrine. The man told him, his tone utterly horrified and scandalized. What do you mean? Krillin asked, confused. Brother Icarus gestured at Krillin. The sacred texts are kept in a place of purity and peace. An area where we do not allow any negative energy to potentially corrupt them. Krillin scratched at his chin upon hearing that. Well, I guess that makes sense. He thought about his own ki and realized that of anyone that might cause problems for sensitive materials, he was the one that needed to be the most careful. So what do I need to do? We have purifying baths that remove any corruption that might affect the texts. He stood and with a graceful sweep of his hand gestured towards a small bathhouse that Krillin remembered Brother Itat showing him during the tour. Only by cleansing yourself of the impurities will you be able to balance yourself and thus be able to read the texts without fear of corrupting them. Well, okay then. Krillin adjusted his hat. All of that sounded like a bit much, but he wasn't the man in charge of the powerful ancient texts. If that is what I need to do. Brother Icar though once more placed a hand on his shoulder, turning Krillin around before holding out his open palm. That will be 4,000 zeni. Krillin started at that. 4,000 zeni. It wasn't a ridiculous amount, but something he hadn't expected to have to pay for. It was just to wash his body. It's only 2,200 if you wish to only bathe in there, though I must warn you that if you do not use our special soaps, then you can't actually enter the sacred chamber. The bath will leave you empty of both good and bad energy. The soaps will ensure that good energy is placed within your being and that it remains there. Krillin grumbled but accepted he was going to need to do that, pulling out the bills and handing them to Brother Icar, who produced from seemingly nowhere a tiny basket with a bar of soap that was barely bigger than his thumb and some shampoo in a bottle that made a capsule look large. He accepted the two and turned to go, only for Brother Icar to catch him once more. Unless you wish to enter the chambers, you will also need our specially purified robes and sandals. Purified robes and sandals? Krillin exclaimed. Brother Icar nodded rapidly. Oh yes, very important. Nature is full of such chaos. The predator stalking and killing the prey. The mother birthing her child. Digital watches. All are strange and wonderful and natural, but they are not pure. You cannot hope to read from the sacred texts if you are not pure. Fine, Krillin muttered. Wonderful. I will have Brother Isis bring you a set. The monk pulled out a small scroll and opened it, looking at the contents carefully. Is that a way to determine my purification levels? Krillin asked. Brother Icar though shook his head. Oh no, this is a pricing sheet to determine your bill. Now, a set of robes will cost you 33,500 zeni. Krillin went stiff as a board before he collapsed on the ground, twitching. But due to your size we will have to have it tailored to fit, so that will be an additional 10,000 zeni. The sandals we should have in your size, so those will run you only 3,000 zeni, which is a good deal on having purified footwear. Now, if you wish to actually handle the sacred texted, that will be 2,000 zeni for our special blessed gloves, though if you prefer you can hire one of us to read to you the texts at 2,500 zeni. You truly don't get the benefits of their knowledge if they aren't read to you by one who has studied them. Krillin weakly got up and opened his wallet, convinced he could hear the poor thing screaming in agony. Knowledge found. Enter the temple. Bulma, I called out as I walked through her chosen domain while we were on the island, her workshop. Of course, to any sane and rational person this was no garage or basement work area. It wasn't some small little room with bits of lumber lying about and table saws covered in wood dust. Nor was it a table next to some clunker car where one puttered about with engine parts, seeing if they could get them back to working order. No, Bulma's workshop was more like Tony Stark's underground lab in Iron Man. Dull white surfaces so it didn't hurt the eyes but still allowed one to notice even a single lost screw. Tables and cabinets all over. Though it was pretty open, there were still different rooms for whatever she might want to work on. As Isco and I walked through it, we spotted rooms set up for all manner of different testing, including a dunk tank and a fire box. There was a glass room with computers in it with a temperature gauge that showed it was rather frosty and a large area with a massive 3D printer that sat silent. In fact, much of the lab was silent. Isco, she here? I asked. She is, sir, Isco said, scanning the room. One of the first things Bulma had done when we'd arrived on the island was upgrade my buddy with all sorts of bells and whistles. To allow him to better capture the action without fear of destruction, she'd said, though a part of me wondered if she still believed I was only sticking around for the documentary. And before you ask per my scan, she is still awake. Lovely, I muttered. We need a young doctor on this island. Goku would only allow that if the doctor was a fighter who punched broken bones back together. Not true. If he could get healed up so he could train more, then he'd be all for a new arrival. I shrugged and allowed Isco to lead me over to Bulma, who was leaning against her hand, half in a daze but sadly awake. Hey Bulma, I said softly, doing my best to not startle her. I had purposely made my footfalls louder than they needed to be in hopes that she would hear me coming, but she still gave a little jump and turned around, forcing a smile on her face. Oh, Chaos, she chirped. How are you? Documentary stuff. By the way, you don't mind that we all call you Chaos, right? I mean, that is your last name, not your first, but it just sounds better than Avo, no offense though. I mean, Avo is a fine name, it's just that Chaos rolls off the tongue. Chaos. Chaos. It's fine, I told her, bemused by her rambling. Though they had given me an idea. And actually, yes, I do want to do some documentary stuff. Figured today would be a good day to check on you. I think I'll kind of do a rolling schedule thing, checking in on everyone as the months go by so we can see their growth. That sounds like a good idea, Bulma admitted. Though you might need to be ready to leap down here if I hit a breakthrough, you never know when inspiration is going to strike. Right, I said. You have someplace comfortable where we can talk. Not sure you want to be perched on that stool the entire time. Right, Bulma muttered to herself, standing up and grimacing as her back cracked. I know how bad that can be, trust me. Yeah, come to my lounge. She gestured for us to follow, and about 5 minutes later we were in a small soundproof room. It was the only one with carpeting, and it had 2 couches and a chair stationed in it. There was a TV on the wall that was currently off and a mini fridge filled with food and drinks like you'd find at a hotel. Very impersonal, but also far warmer than her lab had been. I settled myself in the chair while Bulma got on the couch. So, what do you want to ask? Bulma asked. Well, I said, knowing I needed to word this careful. I'm thinking maybe at first I should take stock of what is going on in the lab, so I ask the right questions. While I do that, maybe you can squeeze in a nap. Want to be well rested before you go on camera. Oh, Bulma asked before looking up at the TV, and shrieking. Oh my god, she screamed, leaping up and shoving me out of the way, causing me to pinwheel my arms for a moment before I crashed to the ground. Bulma, for her part, stared at her reflection in the dark TV screen, tugging at her face. Look at me. My hair is a mess, the bags under my eyes, and, oh, is that a zit? She began to touch a spot on her forehead that I honestly saw as nothing more than normal skin, but in Bulma's eyes must have been a massive red mountain with a huge white cap on the top. No, she squealed. I can't be interviewed like this. How will I ever get a boyfriend looking this way? Dear Lord, instead of me they should have had a shrink get self-inserted into this world, I thought to myself, rolling my eyes at Bulma's clear issues as she continued to ramble about her looks and how that would affect her dating life. There is nothing wrong with wanting to be in a relationship, but she acts like that is the sole thing that defines her. The woman might be one of the smartest people in the world, possibly even the galaxy, considering most of the Nimrods that Frieza has working for him, and all Bulma can think about is getting a man and how important that is. And she thinks it's only her looks that will attract one. I so badly wanted to tell her that no, It would be her fierce spirit that would eventually net her the prince of her, well, not exactly dreams, but a prince perfectly suited for her. But it wasn't easy to go. Hey, stop worrying about your looks. The guy you want needs a woman who is just as much a bitch as he is a bastard. That would have gone over just swimmingly. So instead, I was forced to wait until she had calmed down just enough to actually listen to me before I said, well, why don't you take a nap and then grab a shower and we can chat then? I can practice my magic stuff, and I knew somewhere Baba had sensed me calling it magic stuff, and would make me suffer for that, and then come back. Yeah, I guess, Bulma said weakly, already moving to the couch. She grabbed a blanket as Isco and I headed out, leaving her to hopefully finally get some sleep. You able to monitor her so we know when she's actually awake? I asked. I am, sir. In fact, I've tapped into all the systems on the island so I can watch over all of you. We might suggest to Tianhe eating far too much dairy. I don't want to know. His stool is rather runny. I'm good, Isco. MC. Krillin tugged on the robes he was wearing, but rather lightly. He'd already torn the first one that he'd gotten and been forced to pay for them to be restitched because one could not gain the secret knowledge with a rip in the sacred robes. For a tear there was a tear to your soul. You'd think with things that were so expensive they would be a bit higher quality. His favorite, taco, shirt was made of heavier fabric than the robes, and I got that from a t-shirt cannon at a baseball game. And not even a good one. Still, he had on the robes. And the woven sandals. And he'd scrubbed himself with the hard bristle brush and coated his body in the soaps and powders that had been far too little to get the job done and forced him to buy extra. But he'd done everything the monks had asked, and finally, he was ready. He was going to see their scrolls and learn their secret knowledge, and he was going to be able to help his friends at long last. He approached one of the monks and quickly bowed, the man smiling gently and returning the gesture. I am ready to go over your sacred texts. Of course. I am Brother Aye, and I will be the one to lead you into the temple. He motioned for Krillin to follow him. Now, you have obtained the gloves needed to handle the texts. Krillin nodded. Obtain, or pay for them? He thought to himself in annoyance. That had been even more zenny out of his pocket. Yes, I have, he said simply as they walked up to the temple proper, going up a series of stairs and then entering the structure itself. It was rather plain looking. Admittedly, the stonework was rather beautiful, but there were no carvings or decorations. Just stone brick upon stone brick. There were no other rooms to look in, so Krillin felt like he was walking down a long tunnel, though hopefully one that at the end held the answers he desperately needed. Finally, Brother Aye paused at a single doorway, Krillin peering inside to see a large book sitting on a pillar, a shaft of light coming down from the ceiling to illuminate it. Now, how much time would you like to spend studying the text? Brother Aye asked. Well, Krillin looked at the man only to find he had pulled out Anther Billing Scroll. Ah, he pulled out some zenny and handed it over. Let's start with 3 hours. Very good. I will return when you are done. May you find what you seek. The man bowed and left Krillin alone to enter the room. Okay, he thought as he stepped into the small space, moving towards the pedestal. This has been really frustrating and expensive, but it was worth it. I'm finally going to learn the secrets of the miser and be able to help my friends. Hopefully it's some special technique, or a way to power myself up, or maybe some new fighting style that Raditz will have no way to counter. Krillin slipped on the gloves before finally reaching out for the tome. He didn't even bother to lift it up, choosing to allow it to lay there. It was a deep brown color with bronze inlay, truly a sight to behold. Now this is a book that holds secret knowledge, he thought as he opened the tome up and began to read. The power was always in you. The rest of the pages were blank. MC. Come now, you have to watch that footwork, Roshi declared as he walked over to Goku, stopping his and Tien's sparring match. Piccolo had gone off to practice the special beam cannon, trying to figure out ways to power it up far quicker as apparently the move needed 5 minutes to charge, 5 minutes. Fighting isn't like pleasing a woman, Piccolo. Ya don't get a lot of time to do it. Hehehe. And that wasn't suitable for any real fight, let alone against someone as quick as Raditz. I watched that fight thanks to Isco and I saw how Raditz likes to keep to the ground. That means ya have to remember your footwork, Goku. He lightly smacked Goku's shin, not enough to hurt him but just enough to make him wise up and move his leg in the direction that Roshi wanted. Ya have spent too much time fighting in the sky or hovering, ya have to remember fighting on some solid earth. Goku, as always, took his scolding with good humor. Honestly, that was what made him such a wonderful student. No one would ever claim that Goku was the smartest man in the world, but Goku took instruction very well. Never became upset, never yelled or complained. He might be confused by suggestions, but he'd ask why he had to do something a certain way and then he'd try it out. No back talk, no sass. Even Gohan, the man and not the little boy, had sassed Roshi a few times during his training. Goku though took everything in stride. It was why Roshi loved teaching him. Right. Sorry Master Roshi. Goku said with a laugh. Sometimes I forget that while it's good to be able to move up or down to get out of a tricky spot, I still need to remember my balance. Exactly, Roshi declared, ambling back over to the sidelines. He had drawn out a large square and was having the two keep themselves within the boundaries, just like as the World Martial Arts Tournament. While there would be nothing like that when it came to battling Raditz, it did force both fighters to be aware of where they were and to economize their movements. So Gohan, Chi-Chi said from where the two sat, watching Goku train, why do you think Master Roshi is so concerned with footwork? The little boy tilted his head. Because he might trip and fall. Yes, but that's not all, Chi-Chi stated. Chi-Chi had decided that today would be about fundamental learning, something Roshi fully endorsed. Too many fighters thought all they had to do was bulk up their muscles and they would be ready for a fight. They might be able to fight, but win. That was a different story. So Chi-Chi and Gohan were seated on the grass, watching as Tien and Goku began to go at each other again. Footwork allows you to set up attacks, to better defend, and to force the battle to go the way you want. What do you mean? Gohan asked. Look at Tien, she told him. See how he has an even broader torso and wider shoulders than your father. Yeah, Gohan proclaimed. He makes daddy look skinny. Hey, Goku complained even as he and Tien traded punches and kicks. I'm not skinny. Compared to Tien you are. Xiaosu called out with a laugh. Come on, Goku whined. That's not fair guys. I'm really strong. Yeah, Tien said with a smirk, for a skinny guy. Guys, Goku complained, but soon he and Tien began to spar once more. Chi-Chi turned back to Gohan. Tien is more muscular than your father, but that means he has to be even more careful about his footwork. Because that makes him top heavy. She gestured at Xiaosu. And Xiaosu is smaller, so that means that his center of gravity is more balanced. Center of gravity? Gohan asked, mulling over the words. That's right, Xiaosu declared. It is all about weight. That's why when me and Tien spar, I'm able to keep up with him despite him being so much bigger than me. I know if I hit him in the right spot he could go down. Oh, Gohan said, delighted to have finally caught on to what everyone was getting at. Plus it saves energy to stay on the ground, Chi-Chi stated. Your father can fight far longer on the ground than he can in the air. It's like how you can walk far longer than you can run. You're really smart, mommy. Gohan declared, causing Chi-Chi to blush. Oh, I don't know about that. Goku though spoke up. But Gohan is right. You and Bulma are the two smartest people I know. I would have had so much trouble if I didn't have them around. That's why it's real important you listen to them when they tell you something. Goku, Chi-Chi said softly, blushing at his compliment. and then crying out when Tien managed to leg sweep him, causing Goku to go slamming down hard into the packed down dirt. Daddy! Gohan cried out as Goku groaned, rubbing the back of his head even as Chi-Chi rushed over to him. Goku, are you okay? Haha, I'm fine, Goku said, but from the way his words were slurring it was clear he wasn't right as rain. I've taken harder hits than that, he stared at her, blinking. Whoa, there are two of you. He reached out and Chi-Chi leaned back so he didn't poke her in the eye. Wow, Chi-Chi, when did you learn the multi-form technique? Hey, so much for people saying Goku has a thick skull. Roshi laughed. That is not funny, Chi-Chi roared, darting into Master Roshi's general direction, making him shiver with fear as she approached, looming over the expert martial artist. My husband has a head injury and you think this is a grand joke? Daddy, Gohan said worriedly, and Xiaosu floated over to comfort the boy, allowing him to feel a bit of ease even as he stared at his father in confusion. Don't worry, Gohan, Goku said, shaking his head, which in everyone's opinion would only make the damage worse. I'm fine. All I need is a Senzu bean and I'll be back to training. Oh no you don't, Chi-Chi said firmly, moving away from Master Roshi, who sighed in relief, and approaching her husband. We aren't going to be using any Senzu beans on this unless we absolutely need to. That caused Goku to blink in surprise. But Chi-Chi, the Senzu beans can heal up any wound or injury. Yes, she said, cutting him off, but they shouldn't be used for minor aches and pains. But my head really hurts. Goku whined before looking at Gohan and grimacing. But not really, Gohan. It's fine. Haha ow. Master Roshi rolled his eyes at that. Goku, Chi-Chi replied firmly, the Senzu beans are for if there is an emergency. I know how you are. As it gets closer to Raditz returning you are going to push yourself even harder. And that means you are more likely to hurt yourself. Right, Goku said, confused. And I'll just use a Senzu bean. And what will you do if you wasted all the Senzu beans on smaller injuries that just needed you to rest? Well, I'll get more. Master Roshi though frowned. Didn't Ko say that Korin wasn't for sure when the next batch of Senzu beans would be ready? It actually wasn't a question. The filmmaker had directly warned them all of that, which is why he'd ended up giving the beans to Chi-Chi to keep safe. While Goku might have been willing to try and sneak in and steal them from Ko's, he wouldn't risk angering his wire, and thus the beans were safest with Chi-Chi. Oh, haha, right, forgot about that. Chi-Chi glowered at him before sighing. Come on Goku, we are getting you to bed. She helped him up before glancing at Tien. That was a very good leg sweep. Come along Gohan. The little boy nodded and the Sun family headed back to the research station. Goku the last one everyone heard as he complained about missing out on training and how he'd need to work 3 times as hard tomorrow to make up for it. Honestly, with Goku though, the idea of having an excuse for working even harder was probably a wonderful thing, Roshi thought to himself with a sniff before turning to Tien and Xiaosu. Chi-Chi was right, that was a good leg sweep, Tien. Good to see you remember that there is more to a fight than just throwing punches. When he has to fight me all the time he learns how to be sneaky. Xiaosu declared with a smirk. That's right, Tien said before narrowing his eyes, his own smile forming. And since I just lost Goku, I think it's time you and I began doing some sparring. Roshi laughed at the look of surprise that flashed across Xiaosu's face. MC. Krillin walked away from the temple, grumbling under his breath as he hefted his bag on his shoulders. It was a bit fuller than it had been when he arrived, as it was stuffed with his robes and sandals and the leftover soaps from the bathhouse. He'd paid a lot of good zenny for those useless things, he wasn't going to toss them aside. The monks had made a bunch of offers to clean them, pack them, or recycle them for him, but he was just so tired and done with their scams that he hadn't even been able to muster the energy to yell at them. Instead he'd merely moved past them, glowering the entire time as they asked him to return. Maybe I can get Raditz to destroy them first before we fight him, Krillin thought bitterly as he continued back along the path. All that work just to be told the secret is in me. He shook his head. He'd gone through the book several times, but only the first page had any writing on it. The rest was completely blank. A search of the room had shown that there weren't any hidden texts, so it had just been that book, and that lousy, unhelpful message. I knew I shouldn't have trusted that guy Chaos and his stupid scroll. I wasted 3 weeks I could have been training finding this place. He patted his back pocket just to make sure that his wallet was still there, not trusting the monks to have pickpocketed him. And wasted a year's worth of savings too. So, ya enjoy the tourist trap? Barley called out from his hammock as Krillin walked by the old hermit's shack. Yeah, it was a blast, Krillin muttered as he continued on. Barley, undeterred by Krillin's anger, continued to mock him. I warned ya. I told ya it was a tourist trap. That get ya with them fancy soaps of theirs and their robes. They have that soap delivered via cargo robot, probably costs about 20 zenny. He laughed at that. Everyone falls for it, seeking out quick answers in order to make themselves feel better about everything. Krillin's eye twitched, but he kept walking. Well, you go scurry back to your mansion and have your servants tell you it was worth it. That's what most of you deluded rich folks do. He tried to remain calm. To be patient. To let the insults just roll off his back. But all his life Krillin had been mocked. Taunted about his looks, his height, his skills. Told that he would never be good enough. That he was the weak link. That he would only hurt others by getting in the way. And all that came bursting forth. Shut your mouth. He roared, whipping around and stalking back towards Barley. You think this is a game? A joke? You could have told me it was all a scam. Actually explained what they were doing instead of giving me veiled references. But you didn't. You just wanted me go off so you could have a sick laugh. Now see. You see. Krillin thundered. Rich man. I just lost most of my life savings thanks to those con men. But I don't care about that. I would have given up everything I had if it had given me the answers I needed. My friend died for me and now his killer is coming back and we have to stop him because if we don't he's going to kill everyone on the planet. My friends are training to be ready for him and this was my way of helping. I know they are stronger than me but that doesn't matter so long as I can hold my own against that bastard and make him pay for what he did to Yamcha. And all I got to show for it is being told the answer is within me. That isn't going to help protect Gohan or Bulma or Master Roshi or anyone else. So you keep your insults and your comments to yourself because I am done. Barley stared at him as Krillin panted. Well, what insult do you have now to throw at me? Krillin demanded. The old man slowly got out of his hammock. Come on, he said, motioning for Krillin to follow him. What are ya deaf as well as poor? I said come on, Barley proclaimed before walking towards his front door. After a few moments Krillin sighed and followed after. I don't. You had your chance to rant and rave now you're gonna listen to me, Barley said, opening the door and not bothering to look back to make sure that Krillin was following him. I was a businessman, though not by choice. I went to school and was told that's what I would become and, well, that's how things were. You were told what your job was and you just did it. I didn't mind though, because I was told that's how I could make a lot of money, and all I cared about was making money. The shack was just like what Krillin expected it to be. One large room with a worn and chipped table, an ancient wood stove with a half-rusted tea kettle sitting on it. The living area, if it could be called that, was just a rug and a half-collapsed chair that had been repaired many times before. He saw a small doorway with no actual door and within he saw the very edge of a tiny bed. There was nothing really to draw the eye or keep one's attention. Just a drab little living space. We were very good at it, very good at it. Barley smiled at that, shaking his head. Rouge and I, We were good at business but not good at life. Only cared about ourselves and didn't really even care about that. Didn't make money to use it, just to cling to it. Hoard it. Still can't break out of that habit, to be honest. He shook his head. It wouldn't have mattered, until I got sick. He turned and finally looked at Krillin. Until I died. Eyes going wide, Krillin stumbled back, staring at horror at Barley. Who chuckled? I ain't a ghost. Krillin glared at Barley. But I did die, he said. I was dead and gone. But there was no peace. Anyone that tells you that the afterlife is all clouds and feathered buggers is lying. No, Krillin thought, it's King Yemma at his desk. I was trapped, forever to haunt the world. Weighed down with chains of torment. Imagine the heaviest shackles you can think of, then triple that weight. They pulled me down, made every movement take all my energy. I could hardly walk, hardly move, took all my willpower to do so. I had to learn how to gather my strength, to conserve it and make use of every drop I had because I couldn't waste even a droplet. Krillin tried to imagine it. Tried to picture him covered in chains, desperately trying to reach his friends as they fought against Raditz. Rouge though, Rouge. I knew I had to save him from that. I waited till the stars aligned and the barrier between the living and dead was its weakest and reached out to him. Got him to understand that he had to change. Barley smiled. And he did. By George he did. Became a new man. I just didn't realize how much. After a few years, after he had done all he could to make up for his mistakes, he began to make up for mine. He worked to balance the scales, despite not even knowing if it would do anything. It did, Krillin said softly. Of course it did, I'm here ain't I? Barley said with a mocking laugh, making Krillin glower. He balanced the scales. My chains were gone. And when he was given the chance, he swapped with me. Swapped. This ain't what I used to look like, Barley stated. Rouge took my place in the afterlife and I got his body. Only he didn't get trapped in chains. The last words I heard him say was, I'm so light, and then, I was here. In his body. He looked down at his hands, his friend's hands. Given a second chance. You're the repentant miser, Krillin whispered. Ain't as dumb as ya look. Barley taunted. Then, why? Krillin began only to pause. Wait. No, it makes sense. You want to make sure the people that seek you out are actually worthy. So you let them go deal with those con artists. If they just accept what they said, then they aren't the right people to learn from you. Same if they get mad but only focus on the money they lost. Because they are only worried about themselves. But if they explain to you why they want to learn from you, then you'll teach them. Barley blinked at that. Right. Yes. The old man declared. Yes. It isn't for shits and giggles at all. He laughed and after a moment Krillin began to chuckle as well. You are very wise, young man, very wise, and because of that, I will teach you my secrets. Now then, flare out your ki. Krillin frowned. Flare out my ki. Barley's smile fell. You ain't deaf, are ya? I'd say ya have hair in your ears but ya don't have any on top of that bald head of yours. I have more hair than ya. He lifted up his hat to reveal the few strands that he did have before plopping it back down. So show me your ki. Power up. Right. Krillin said with more determination and he tensed, tapping into his inner power. At once he felt his power level begin to rise up as strength flooded his muscles, allowing him to fight at a much. Stop. Barley called out, causing Krillin to pause. Hold on to that, right now. Krillin, used to master Roshi, did as he was asked, focusing on maintaining his power at the level it was currently at. A ki aura was flaring off his skin, crackling and flickering like a bonfire. It always amazed him when he was able to call forth such power. All his life he had been called weak. Pathetic. And yet he was able to tap into power that few in the world could. He glanced down at his arm, seeing the aura and knowing it was a sign of his strength. Look at that wasteful use of energy. Krillin blinked and snapped out of the power-up he'd entered. What? That aura of yours? Barley complained. Did ya see it? Well, yay, Krillin said. It was pretty impressive, right? Impressive? Barley asked before letting out a cackle. It's flashy. That's what it is. Krillin frowned. And that's bad. Barley shot him a dark look. Ya ever hear the phrase, all flash, no substance? Bristling at that, Krillin snapped. There is plenty of substance. That is proof of my power. Yeah, it is, Barley said, causing the young man to once more pause, confused by his sudden change in attitude. Gone was his dismissive attitude, and instead Barley was pensive. Considerate. Serious. It is showy though. And wasteful. Wasteful. Barley nodded. That glow you have going. That's your ki leaking out of your body. Released into the air. That's why you have to focus in order to power up, and have to be careful when doing it. No different than performing a ki blast. Well, yeah, Krillin said, not getting Barley's point. I mean, that's what happens when you tap into your ki. Barely, without even flexing a muscle, suddenly began to glow. It was barely there. Just a light illumination coming from under his skin. It was like someone holding a flashlight up to someone's ear. It was nothing like Krillin's power-up, or Goku, or Piccolo. Tien or Xiaosu or Roshi either. He'd honestly never seen someone power up like that. But what was more startling was just how powerful Barley had suddenly become. Nowhere near Goku, of course, or even Krillin himself, but Krillin could sense that his energy levels had rocketed up. Do you know what wins fights? Barley asked. Endurance. A flashy move might be nice, but 9 times out of 10 people win fights by outlasting their opponents. Letting them tire themselves out so you can then end the battle with a single blow as they stand there barely able to remain up and running. He smirked at Krillin, gesturing at his own body. I will never be the strongest fighter. I know that. Seeing that orange-wearing guy with the bed head and the green fellow. I know I'll never match them. Heck, I can tell you are more powerful than me. But I will outlast you. Let you drain your strength away performing silly moves, flaring your aura, and the entire time letting your strength just leach away, and then I will win. And suddenly Barley was darting around him, throwing out punches and kicks that Krillin moved to deflect and counter. And while he managed to avoid getting hit by the time Barley ended, Krillin could feel his heart pounding, and the old man was standing there, yawning. That is what I will teach you. I will show you how to make every drop of ki matter. You will attack with punches that use only the bare minimum you need. Your strikes will be small, but devastating. You will be able to destroy 40 showy fools who waste their time and energy just to try and impress others. Not because you want to be strong. Not because you think you have to prove yourself. Because you know you need every ounce of strength so you can protect your friends. Your family. Your world. He pointed a spindly finger at Krillin. Are you ready to learn? Krillin nodded his head, tightening his gi. I am. Then, let's show you the secrets of selfless style. MC, MC, MC. Bulma, I called out as I walked back down into her lab. Feeling any better? Oh, so much. Bulma said as she came out of a room, brushing her hair. She'd changed into a nicer outfit, had done her makeup, and most importantly looked like she'd actually gotten some sleep. Hey, lunch. She paused, considering the plate I had brought down full of, well, frankly it was all Japanese food, so I had no idea what any of it was and was just glad that the robots in the kitchen could make pizza and burgers. Or is it supper? Technically for you it's brunch considering you just got up, I stated, but it's a late lunch for everyone else. Ooh, Bulma bemoaned, I shouldn't have done that, so much time wasted. No, I said slowly, drawing out the word, you shouldn't have tried to go multiple days without sleep. You need sleep to keep you sane. Oh, Bulma asked, what is that supposed to mean? Thankfully it was Isco who answered. It means that when you humans don't power down properly you tend to get manic ideas. And as someone who relies upon you to make sure I operate at peak efficiency, I don't like the idea of going into safe mode only to awaken with half my shell now made of water and coconuts. You wouldn't mind spider legs though, I commented. Well, naturally, Isko replied. Bulma stared us down and I prepared myself for her to begin screaming and ranting about how we had no idea what we were talking about, only for Bulma to let out a disheartened sigh. Yeah, you're right. She dropped her gaze, staring at her hands. I just feel so useless. Bulma began to pace the floor, Isko and I following after her, so it became less pacing and more her leading a small parade. I just keep trying to think of ways to help everyone train and I can't figure out what to do. Krillin is gone, so I can't help him out until he gets back. Piccolo says that he is fine, and honestly I don't want to press him on any of that. Chi-Chi has 1,000 notes for Gohan, with half of them being, I don't want my baby to be training for anything. And Goku, she let out a groan. Do you realize how hard it is to help Goku train when he can't even decide himself what he wants? Considering when we asked him last week what he wanted on his burger and he just began rattling off ingredients. I said. It's worse than that, Bulma bemoaned, throwing her hands up in the air. At least then I'd have something to work with. But all Goku says is, oh, I don't know. Anything would be great. Then does that stupid laugh of his. Hehehe. You know the one. Isko chimed in, where he shuts his eyes and rubs the back of his head. Yes. Bulma exclaimed, pointing at him. That's it exactly. Ooh, I am growing to hate that laugh. Bulma, I said gently, calm down. Don't you tell me to calm down. She thundered, spinning around and jabbing a finger under my nose. I am going to be as uncalm as I want, thank you very much. Fair enough, I said quickly, holding up my hands in surrender. I'm just so tired of trying to figure out a way to help him. Any of them. Even when I come up with a good idea, they crap all over it. I suggested coming up with a better weight-lifting system and Master Roshi just laughed because it was easier to have them all lift trees. Just. Gah. She let out a frustrated cry and kicked at a garbage can, causing it to topple over and send wadded up pieces of paper flying everywhere. Of course, within moments little cleaning droids began to run about, gathering the paper and putting it right back in the bin. Making the children work, Isko muttered in disgust, staring at the droids. The nerve of, oh, wait, no, they are just little droids. That's fine, they deserve to suffer then. I decided not to poke that bear and instead focused on Bulma. Can I be honest? Sure, Bulma stated, having moved to a chair and slumped down on it in defeat, her rage leaving her and depression returning. You are thinking of this all backwards. Oh, she asked, though she barely mustered the energy to do that. Yeah, I paused. How would you defeat Goku? What? Bulma asked, confused. How would you defeat Goku? Like, I don't. If you right now had to take him down, ensure he couldn't fight, what would you do? I don't know. I shot her a cold look. Don't lie to me. I'm not. Bulma protested. I have no idea how I'd defeat him. I don't think about fighting my friends. Yes you do, I replied. You think about it. Just like Goku has. And Tien. And Krillin. Everyone does it. Nothing wrong with it. Completely natural. It is something everyone considers at some point. How would you take out a friend? Goku has done it for all of us, mark my words. Thought about how he'd get into Capsule Corp. What to do if Tien went berserk. Even how to defeat Master Roshi. It's nothing evil, it's just, that's how fighters think. Like you and your poison idea. Bulma asked. I am never going to live that down, am I? I grumbled, both Bulma and Isko shaking their heads, or rather Isko just wiggled his entire form from side to side. My point is that there is nothing wrong thinking about how you might fight someone. Daydream about it. Think of all the ways you could take someone down. So I ask you again, Bulma, how would you defeat Goku? Bulma considered my question very carefully. So going at him with straight kicks and punches aren't going to work. Not only because Goku is super strong but he's also super tough. So even getting something to augment my strength wouldn't help that much. He's fast too, but I could counter that if I were able to plan ahead and figure out where to have the fight, led him into someplace that wouldn't be easily for him to escape from. He couldn't see it coming though, because if he had time to study it he'd probably just blast his way out. Bulma got up and began to walk about, this time Isco and I remaining put as she worked over the problem carefully in her head. So it's not brute force. And you can't hold him in a trap for long. Give him even a minute or two and he can figure out how to get out of a nasty situation. That's why I ruled things out like poison gas. Goku would realize what was going on. Gravity crushing him down is the same thing. He'd figure out how to either break the machine or fight in high gravity. Speak of, we should discuss that idea later, I said, not wanting to derail her thoughts, but if she could build a gravity chamber early the group could race ahead by leaps and bounds. Electricity is what I've been thinking of. Something to shock him, fry his nerves. Hard and quick so he can't think. You'd have to pile it on, couldn't make it prolonged though. So a quick hard burst. And I'd need a way to get out of his path. She rubbed her chin before suddenly looking up at me. Okay, I get what you are going for. Raditz is Goku's brother, so reasonably whatever works on Goku would work on Raditz. There is just one problem. The only person that might be willing to use any of these ideas is you, and you're all in with magic. Not all in, I stated. I'm willing to have a few science tricks up my sleeve. Still, you said yourself you aren't a fighter. Yeah, that's true, I admitted. And it wasn't me I was thinking of. Then who? I just stared at her. What? Bulma, you ever think about power armor? Times goes by. Grow stronger, Z warriors. 1 month later. Hey Chi-Chi. Goku called out, running over to where Chi-Chi and I were busy looking over the medical supplies. She had really gotten into making sure we were well stocked up. At first it had been for Gohan's sake, but after a few weeks she'd realized that everyone but Gohan was more likely to get injured on this island. And she had taken to heart the idea that the senzu beans should be saved for only the most drastic of situations. Thankfully the worst we'd had was Tien breaking his ankle after a bad kick, so we were only down 1 bean. I'd gotten a few cuts and scrapes myself, but not enough for me to waste a bean on. Honestly, it's a good thing the two of us are here, I thought to myself as she went through a roll of bandages. Even Tien doesn't know how to wrap a wound properly. Chi-Chi had studied up on all of this, making sure that she knew just how to take care of any injury that might come up, mostly to ensure that her son and husband, in that order, were okay and able to heal up. Me. I hadn't wanted to take gym class in high school, and thus me and my friends had done a sports medicine class instead. It had paid off when I'd been summoned to deal with a sprain Roshi had gotten just the other day and stopped Xiaosu from wrapping his entire head in gauze after he got a nasty bump from a failed dodge. That was the thing the anime and manga never truly showed you, the damage done to become a skilled fighter. Oh, they played it up for laughs, like Gohan being bruised and bump-riddled after training with Piccolo, but even the Namekian warrior had managed to injure himself in his pursuit of growing stronger. And it was now Chi-Chi and my job to try and help minimize the lasting effects. We were just finishing the inventory when Goku came over, waving his hand rapidly. I nodded to Chi-Chi, who smiled and left me with her data pad to finish the final counts while she walked over to Goku. But he only took her just out of my eyeline, not enough for me not to be able to hear them speak. What is it, Goku? Oh, I was just thinking about something Bulma said and I wanted to get your opinion on it. And what is that? Well, Bulma claimed that when you work out, while it makes your muscles bigger, your body has to compensate so you get saggy. What? Chi-Chi roared. Whoa, calm down, Goku exclaimed. I was just wondering. Bulma is really smart, so I figured she must know, but I also know you used to train. Yes, Goku, and I assure you my aren't saggy. Well, I guess. He didn't sound convinced, and I could tell that Chi-Chi heard the tone as well. She must have glared at him because Goku hastily added. It's just, well, maybe if you let me have a look at them then I could tell you. Might be hard for you to check. Is that so? Chi-Chi said. Uh-huh, Chi-Chi. I called out. Knee him in the balls. What? Goku screamed in shock and horror. Why? Why would you want to do that? Because you deserve it. I do. I walked around the corner to see Chi-Chi standing over Goku, who was cupping his crotch. Give it a moment, there was a poof, and where Goku had been there was now Oolong, cupping himself and moaning. And there it is. How did you know he was a fake? Chi-Chi asked. It was pretty obvious, did you not? Chi-Chi just blinked. Well, I suppose if Goku had said something that stupid he would have deserved a knee to the Dragon Balls. Why would I knee the Dragon Balls? The real Goku said, coming into the hallway dressed just in a towel. Have you ever felt how solid those things are? Man, that would hurt. He looked down at a moaning Oolong. Oh hey, what are ya doing down on the ground there? I smirked. He's just reevaluating his life. I knelt down and poked the pig man with my index finger. And what did we learn today? www, Oolong whimpered. That's right. Don't be a filthy pervert. I stood back up and shook my head. Seriously, he's lucky that you aren't prone to anger, Goku, or you'd have done a lot worse. Why? Goku said, confused. What did he do? Just was bothering me, Goku, in your form. That's why I gave him a solid knee. Well, that should have been your first clue. Goku said with a laugh. There is no way you'd be able to knee me like that, Chi-Chi. My reflexes are. Chi-Chi grabbed him and kneed him in the stomach. And what have we learned? I asked Goku as he doubled over, groaning. The lesson, children, is to not insult Chi-Chi, who is a wonderful wife and mother, a good friend, and an amazing martial artist. Thank you, Chaos, Chi-Chi said with a bright smile, before making a jerking motion with her knee. I tensed, but she didn't actually hit me, instead just merely smirking before patting me on the shoulder. Don't forget it. I won't, I said weakly, still sweating a bit, before handing her the data pad. All set. Wonderful. I'm going to go down to the gym and practice on some of the dummies Bulma set up, you boys have fun. Yeah, it will be just great, Oolong complained, shifting back and forth as he slowly recovered from the hit. I'll spend the next 3 hours digging your meatballs out, I asked with a smirk, having quickly recovered from Chi-Chi's little scare. And just what is going on here? Baba declared, suddenly appearing at my side. I let out a yelp and the old witch let out a huff. You need to work on your awareness. I swear if you begin screaming, constant vigilance, I muttered before gesturing at the two. The perv piggy perv. Whatever. He decided to try and trick Chi-Chi into exposing herself. Haha. Baba cackled. Got what ya deserved. Just like that brother of mine, always thinking with that shriveled up worm of his. MC. Whoa. Gohan cried out, leaping out of the way as Master Roshi sent a blast of ki energy rather close to his head. Watch it, old man. Piccolo snapped before, without thinking, reaching down and helping Gohan up. Sorry about that, Roshi said, rubbing his nose. Just got the sense someone was mocking something real important. MC. And what about you? Baba said, floating over to Goku. Oh, haha, I just forgot how quick Chi-Chi has gotten. Goku sprang back to his feet, doing a few stretches before looking himself over careful. Man, she sure does know how to hit. And so fast too. It's amazing how quickly she's gotten back into fighting form with just so little time training. He rubbed his belly. I think she might even be stronger than when we fought in the tournament. If she had been like she is now back then, the me back then could never have beaten the her of now and would have needed to train to become the me I am now to defeat the her back then who was as strong as the her she is now. We all stared at him. Did that make sense? I'm sure somewhere in that word spaghetti there was an ounce of logic, I commented. Ooh, Goku said, eyes lighting up. I could. No. Baba and I snapped at the same time. Ah, come on. It's 9 in the morning, Goku. I told him. You can have spaghetti at lunch. Believe me, I'd be thrilled to have something different, so I'll even share with you, which meant that I would have to make sure I got to serve myself first before Goku ate everything, but you need to focus on training. Maybe go work with Chi-Chi. Prove that you respect her as a fighter. I respect her as a fighter. Goku complained. I just know I'm faster than her. He rubbed his stomach again, wincing. Normally. That's because sometimes you are so fast ya don't think. Baba snapped, bopping Goku on the head as she floated around him, circling him like the moon around the planet. You have no idea how to woo a woman. Woo? Goku asked, tilting his head in confusion. I pinched the bridge of my nose. Damn it all, Baba. What was that? The witch said sternly, glaring at me. Why are you taking that tone with me? Because now I have to give Goku the talk because I sure as hell can't let anyone else do it. Baba blinked, clearly considering what it would be like if Roshi or Piccolo tried to explain to Goku how one properly wined and dined a woman. She began to cackle so hard she nearly fell of her crystal ball. Yeah, laugh it the up. I snarled. Goku, still confused, just stared at us. So can I go train now? Yes, I grunted, running my tongue over my teeth. But first I want you to apologize to Chi-Chi and explain that you didn't mean to insult her and you're sorry. And then, for the love of all that's good and holy, don't go spouting off anything stupid until I have a chance to explain things to you. Good luck with that, Baba declared. Goku though merely nodded his head before hurrying off, leaving me, Baba, and Pee-Pee the Wonder Pig. Well, unless you want to spend more time around this pathetic bit of bacon, Baba said, it's time to continue your training. We need to still determine more about what magic you are best suited for if you want to complete the more complex spells. I nodded, but my gaze remained on Oolong. Well, let's go, Baba declared. But I shook my head. I think I have a better idea on how I should be training today. That got Baba floating up to glare at me. Now see here, she snapped. We talked about this. I set up the training regiment, not you. If I leave it up to you, then you'd be only asking to shoot of fireballs or other flashy moves instead of learning actual proper skills. But even as she ranted, I pulled out the scroll of knowledge and whispered my question, smirking as it began to write out the answer. Wipe that smile off your face, this isn't a joking matter. Baba said, I am your teacher and. I held up the scroll. Baba blinked. Well, she finally said, now that does have potential. And then she smiled. MC. Ever since Chaos had mentioned power armor, Bulma's mind had been racing with ideas. For far too long she'd allowed Goku and Krillin and the rest of their friends to protect her, but she didn't want to be protected. She wanted to be able to fight on her own, without needing to worry about the others being around to help her. After all, there were plenty of times where they found themselves separated, and it did no good if Bulma wasn't able to defend herself. The problem was figuring out how to balance everything she wanted. Need power, she thought to herself. Not the first time such thoughts had entered her mind, and she knew it also wouldn't be the last that they would enter her mind either. Power is the key against someone like Raditz. But it isn't the only key. She thought of what she had seen with Goku's fights. Power is one thing, but you need to be able to move. Speed. And the ability to shift and adapt. Agility. It was the great puzzle that had tormented all inventors. How do you build something strong, light, flexible, and durable? Something that could do what you wanted but wasn't so heavy and cumbersome that it made it not worth using. What good was a machine that could remove a rock from a field if it took 10 times as long to get it to the spot than it would just hiring a team of men to drag it out with ropes? She had seen it in how Goku battled, dropping his weighted clothing so that he could have greater speed. She needed to protect herself and still be able to counter the quickness of the Saiyan foe that haunted them all. Which was why she wasn't thrilled that she'd been dragged away from her lab just as she felt she was nearing a breakthrough. You know, I hope you didn't drag me out of my lab just to show off your muscles, Bulma complained as Tien, shirtless and flexing, stood before her in the clearing. She had been in the middle of working on some new bio-weaves when Tien had asked her to come and help him with something, and that had left her rather annoyed because she'd found herself getting into a good groove. Nope, Xiaosu declared, showing off his bicep. Bulma couldn't help but chuckle at that. Very impressive. You shouldn't be dismissive of Xiaosu, Tien commented. If he wanted he could punch a hole right through your stomach. She blinked at that and Xiaosu smirked at her. A cold, calculating smile. Fair enough, she said with a swallow, remembering that even at his small size Xiaosu was a skilled warrior. He did manage to get into the last World Martial Arts tournament we all attended. And he held his own rather well there too. It's easily to forget that he's a fighter because he looks so cute, but looks can be deceiving. She felt ashamed for dismissing Xiaosu. After all, she had become mad herself that everyone thought she was just a dumb bimbo when in reality she was one of the smartest people on the planet. Besides, Tien said dryly, you aren't my type. Oh yeah, Bulma said, eyes suddenly lighting up, I've been meaning to ask you, what did ever happen to launch? We didn't work out, Tien admitted. Just too different. Bulma must have stared at him a bit too hard because he added rather quickly, it's fine. Really? Okay. Not really, he admitted. It hurt. But I also knew it was the right thing to do. It was like leaving the Crane school, Xiaosu stated. It was our home and we dedicate our lives to it, but going on would have hurt even more. It was better to make the break. Tien let out a sigh at that. Yeah. Bulma didn't press him further to ensure he was telling the truth. She knew what it was like to end something because while it was wonderful it was also terrible, and the momentary sharp pain of breaking it was better than a death by 1,000 tiny cuts. Instead she said, can I ask? Tien looked up at her and rather than ask just what had gone wrong with the relationship Bulma found herself saying, where she is then. At that Tien smiled. A genuine smile. She decided she wanted to see the world. Right after we broke up she went to some big card game tournament and won the entire pot. Still wish you'd waited a few weeks to break up, Xiaosu bemoaned, and Tien glowered at his best friend for the comment. She decided she wanted to see what life had to offer. She's been traveling all over, seeing the sights. We get postcards, Xiaosu declared. Well, I'm glad she's happy, Bulma said. So now you can explain that little comment about me not being your type. She put her hands on her, flashing a dangerous smile at the two. Don't think I'd forgotten that comment. Tien winced but then stated, is Goku your type? Fine, Bulma said, as long as the reason you aren't interested in me has to do with feeling like family rather than thinking I am ugly, then I suppose I can allow that. She shook her head before looking around the clearing. So, what did you need from me? Did you make the device we asked you to? Tien asked. Right here, Bulma said, pulling from her side bag a small tablet. Took some work and I had to bug Roshi a few times, but I was able to get it all set up. I give to you the energy scanner. She flipped it around so that Tien could see the screen. She knew he most likely didn't understand 90% of what he was seeing, but that honestly didn't matter. What did was that Bulma had been able to get the device made and not have it be 20 devices at once. With this hand device I can get all sorts of readouts. Key levels, estimated strength levels due to impact, air movement, and destruction comparisons. All of this combines together to tell me the attack power someone has as well as the defensive power. And it can do all that? Tien asked. Bulma scowled. Of course it can. I wouldn't have said it could do it otherwise. Come on, Tian, what do you take me for? Okay, calm down, Tian pleaded. Don't tell me to calm down. You insult my work and expect me to calm down. Maybe I should just take this and throw it into the ocean. Maybe the whales can determine attack and defense power. I'm sorry, okay. She took several moments to calm herself before finally nodding. All right then. Seeing as he wasn't going to argue with her anymore, Bulma decided to continue on. So I already scanned several of you while you were fighting and also asked my dad to send over some data so I could actually create a scale. She didn't mention that she'd convinced Chaos to let her ask the scroll of knowledge a few questions, no need to clue anyone in on any shortcuts she had taken. So a standard human baby is our base level. She hit a few buttons before showing on the screen the image of a cute chubby baby that couldn't even sit up. They are a 1 on the Bulma scale. The Bulma scale? Tien asked. Of course. Bulma said with a chipper voice. I created this so it gets named after me. Newtons, get out of the way. Here come Bulmas. Tien and Xiaosu just stared at her. So then, she continued on. So you have reached 697 on the Bulma scale. Xiaosu, you are around 539. Of course Raditz, from what I've looked over from his battle with Piccolo and Goku, is at 2943 on the Bulma scale. He's that high, Xiaosu wailed. Well, he could be higher or lower, Bulma admitted. This works better scanning stuff live, rather than off film. But I think that's where he's roughly at. Meaning we are nowhere close to being at his level, Tien said bitterly. But that's why we're doing this, remember? Xiaosu said, coming over and patting his friend on the leg. Yeah, I know, Tien muttered. I just thought we would have closed the gap quicker. Well, considering that you were at 185 at the last World Martial Arts Tournament, I'd say you've done pretty good. Bulma said. And while I can't get a decent reading thanks to limited footage, I can tell that you have improved. Tien finally nodded, accepting. Yeah, and if we keep training we'll only get stronger. Not said was that Raditz would most likely be training as well. Well, he said, no use wasting any more time then. I want you to confirm that I am still at 697, okay? Righto. Bulma said happily, backing up and aiming the energy scanner at him. Right now you are at a basic 319, but I imagine that's because you haven't fully powered up. Yeah, Tien confirmed before tensing, channeling his ki through his body. Bulma watched on the screen as the numbers began to climb higher and higher as the visible aura of energy began to flare around the man. The veins on his neck stuck out, his muscles bulged, and he growled low in his throat as he drew more and more of his power to the surface. Off to the side she heard Xiaosu also powering up but didn't stop scanning Tien. He suddenly burst into motion, throwing a series of kicks and punches, lashing out at the air. The device took all of that in, calculating how fast he was moving, how the air was being displaced by his strikes, and how his body was reacting. All to give her a complete picture of his strength both in terms of attack and defense so she could then have an overall score. 697, 701, 712. Okay. It's holding at 712. Either you've gained 15 more on the Bulma scale or it's like I thought and using the footage doesn't give me the full story. I can also tell more if you begin sparring with someone, give you a breakdown of your defensive prowess versus your offensive. Not right now, Tien said, refusing to stop. I'd rather you focus on this. He jerked slightly, and Bulam's eyes went wide. 729, 738, 752, 764, 773. How are you? Did it go up? Xiaosu asked excitedly. By over 60 on the Bulma scale. She declared, and Tien smirked before moving to stand still. I don't understand, how did you do that? Were you repressing your real strength? No, Tien said. It wasn't my strength at all. It was mine and Xiaosu's. Bulma just stared at him, not quite getting what Tian was trying to tell her. A few weeks back I used the scroll of knowledge, he said. Bulma wasn't surprised. Tian had been saying for a while that he wanted to use it, though she didn't get why he had been so secretive about it. Probably like Goku, thinking it's a shortcut, she thought. Goku had been resisting using the scroll, claiming that everyone else should get a turn first. Bulma though knew that her brother had gotten it into his head that using the scroll was cheating and he wanted to be able to beat Raditz on his own. Everyone thought he was being stupid, including Chi-Chi and Piccolo, and they'd all taken their turn trying to wear Goku down and get him to just use the scroll. It was actually rather interesting to watch, in Bulma's opinion. Chi-Chi used guilt, pointing out that if he wasn't strong enough then Raditz would kill them all. Piccolo was utterly dismissive, insulting Goku's dedication to training if he wasn't willing to use everything on hand to become better. Roshi went old school, commenting that the scroll was just another teacher, and Chaos had muttered they should have made it able to talk and dressed it in a little shirt and shorts, then Goku would have listened to it. Tien though had been quiet, clearly not liking he needed to use the scroll but understanding why. As for Isco, earlier, hey, what are you doing, buddy? Goku asked as Isco buzzed around him. Come on, that tickles. He laughed as Isco scanned him. Sorry Mr. Sun, Isco stated dryly, I am setting up auctions on the space eBay to sell your clothing when Raditz returns and murders you because you are a stubborn fool and the listings always do better if one actually describes the fit of the clothing. Goku just stared at Isco as the droid hummed to itself, moving to measure Roshi. MC, MC, MC. So you use the scroll to get stronger. Bulma said, pulling herself from her thoughts and focusing on the task at hand. Not quite, Tien said. When we asked the scroll how we could grow stronger it took us, literally. Yeah, Xiaosu stated. It said how we could get stronger. Tactics, skills, and power-ups that focus on two people, Tien continued. Oh, Bulma said. It thought you wanted to work together. Yes, and it was right. Because what it suggested, we are learning how to do things together we couldn't do on our own. He gestured at himself and Xiaosu. What you saw there was energy sharing. Energy sharing? Bulma asked. Tien nodded. It's a technique that allows you to pass your energy to someone else, to help strengthen them up if they are running low. But what we've discovered is when you do that sometimes the power actually increases. I might only give Xiaosu a tiny bit, but it grows in the transfer. That shouldn't happen, Bulma said. The law of energy transfer states that passing energy from one source to another always causes you to lose some. Xiaosu shrugged. We think it might gather energy around us, we're not sure. The point is that by strengthening our bond we can pass energy back and forth and quickly increase it. Each pass making it grow. Like using magnets to increase acceleration, Bulma murmured to herself. That could work. Definitely would be really handy. One could fight and the other focus on passing energy back and forth. That's not all, Tien said before looking at Xiaosu. Ready? The smaller fighter tensed. Yeah, okay. The two began to glow and Bulma stepped back once more, watching as they stood there. At first she didn't see anything happening and thought maybe they were just passing energy between the two of them. But then she began to see it. On Tien's cheeks red circles slowly appeared, faint at first but growing in color, deepening the red. His skin also became a touch lighter. He wasn't overly tan like Yamcha but he wasn't as pale as Krillin sometimes got, so seeing him go pasty white was startling. Bulma looked toward Xiaosu, and cried out when a crack formed on his forehead, it splitting open to reveal a third eye. Wah! How? Bulma declared as she fell on her rear, scrambling back in shock. It's called bond fusion, Tien stated. It's a secret skill Uskanir warriors have perfected. When two fighters are in perfect sync they can share their skills and traits with one another. Tien focused and Bulma watched as a rock near her began to rise up. It was wobbly and only got up a foot before it dropped back down, but it still rose in the air. I'm still working on it, he admitted. That's amazing, Bulma exclaimed. You were able to use Xiaosu's telekinesis. And I am learning how to use Tian's witch's style, Xiaosu said before grunting, and two little hands popped out of his back. Just hands. It wasn't as impressive as Tian's full arms when he used the move, but it was far better than anyone else. We also think that Xiaosu, because he has a purer heart than me, may be able to tap into the power of the Triclops race that I have been unable to even touch. Xiaosu hurried over and patted Tian on the leg in comfort. Bulma knew that it bugged Tian greatly that he couldn't use all the powers of his race because of his training with Master Xin leaving such a mark on him. Thanks, he said to his friend, and the two powered down, returning to normal. Working together we can both master new moves and skills and then pass them to the other. We have some other ideas. But that is wonderful, Bulma exclaimed. So many different ways you can use that in battle. I am so proud of you. She blushed after she realized what she had said. Not that you are trying to prove anything to me. I just mean. We know, Bulma, and thank you, Tian said. Now, ready to watch us startle Goku and Piccolo with all this? Bulma nodded her head rapidly. Yeah, though let's have Isko record it all. Like I recorded you, the droid said, suddenly floating down. Give me that footage, Bulma said dangerously. But Isko, of everyone on the island, wasn't frightened by Bulma or Chi-Chi for that matter. So instead he merely rose up out of her grasp. No, I believe not. I need as much blackmail material as I can get on your squish and squirms. Isko. Bulma roared, chasing after the droid. MC. It was rare for me to hear Baba being encouraging. Her thing was grumping and complaining and thinking everyone was weaker than they were, only to be mildly surprised when they proved not to be. She'd thought that waves would knock over Piccolo and that Goku would blast his arms off trying out new variations of the Kamehameha. And with me it was that I was a weakling that wouldn't ever matter. Which didn't bug me because she was kind of right on that, at least in terms of fighting. So it was a very odd thing to hear her compliment me as I finished up with our newly created training regiment. You have a natural affinity for that, she commented, clearly impressed. I have some acting training, I stated. Did Shakespeare? So did I, but that doesn't, oh. Hehehe, the plays. I merely raised an eyebrow at that, wondering if the witches 3 from Macbeth had taken inspiration from Baba. But you are picking all that up far faster than I expected, especially with only a few hours of practice. I opened my mouth to tell her thanks only for her to cut me off. But don't get the rest of your magic sucks and we need to get that strengthened. Now, I want you to work on building up your reserves. Okay, I said with a shrug. Evil magic. That made me less inclined to begin. And wipe that scowl off your face. Baba demanded. It's important we get your evil magic up to the level of your good magic so we can determine just which you are better suited for. Good, I said. I'm better suited for good. Hey, you say that now. She wagged her finger at me. But let's see what you say when you have a taste of true evil. I let out a groan at that but didn't argue. Building up evil magic and good magic was different from building up good ki and bad ki. With those, the ki was affected by the actions of the user, turning neutral ki into one or the other. It was like adding drops of food coloring to frosting. You added some blue or some red and it began to become the color. The more you committed, the more it changed. To the point that it became very hard to undo that color. King Piccolo, according to Baba, could have dedicated the rest of his existence to saving the galaxy and probably never managed to get his ki to any level of good. Our Piccolo thankfully had started out with neutral ki, not tainted by his previous self's actions, and thus even with the evil things he'd done had a chance to develop his ki into good ki. But magic was different. With it, one's actions actually created the magic without the body. That was like having already dyed frosting and making a cake with it. Apply some red, apply some blue. One might overwhelm the other, but you could still have both and use both. He could become one or the other. Magic remained what it was, waiting to be used. As a human, I had a good mix of both, but Baba had made clear that my good magic far outweighed my evil magic. She wanted to build up the evil a bit more, get it to levels where I could cast some spells with it, and then see what I had a natural affinity for. Only then would we be able to figure out the best training regimen for me. I knew the basics now, it was time to get advanced. Fine, I muttered, pulling out my phone. So, what evil are you going to do? Baba asked. Call in a bomb threat. That would be a fun one. Very evil. I'm investing in the American stock market. Baba blinked. Only companies that I see as evil, I said. Polluters, drug manufacturers who refuse to price their pills at a reasonable rate, Ford. That is your idea of evil. Baba raged. I shot her a cold look. I'm from Michigan. Do you realize what the Ing Ford family did to the Detroit Lions? The witch glowered. I hardly think. I held out my left hand and dark evil magic appeared. Oh, yeah, I told you, they are truly. Not that, you simpleton. Baba snapped, hovering over to my hand, stared at the newly gained magic. That isn't right. I glanced at her, suddenly growing concerned as I pocketed my phone. What do you mean? Your evil magic, it isn't behaving like it's supposed to. At least not any evil magic I've ever seen. I looked down at my hand. Now that she said it, the energy I was producing was odd. I'd expected dark flames or an aura of wicked intent. Or perhaps the reverse, where it was icy cold to the touch. Lightning that crackled from my fingertips like the Emperor's blue bolts. But instead, my magic was a symbiote. Not an actual one, but very much like one. Black in color, the magic didn't flare out, but instead it oozed about my palm and ran along my fingers. It never dripped or fell away, clinging instead tightly to my hand. Wiggling my fingers caused it to stretch, but it was very quick to snap back to what it had been. It clung to me, held on tight like an upset child hugging their mother's leg. Baba reached into the folds of her robe and pulled out a pair of old-fashioned scissors. Let me have a sample. I feel I have to ask if you want a sample of my magic or my fingers, I said. I don't need your fingers, I know where they've been. She snapped. She reached out and grabbed at the tendril of evil magic, pulling it away from my skin. It was an odd sensation, to say the least. A mix of a latex glove and Nickelodeon gack. It pulled away in a stretchy, rubbery sort of way, elastic springy. Baba brought the scissors up. At once the magic lashed out, thrashing out at her and sending her flying before grabbing onto my hand. I got even more the clinging sensation of a child clutching to their parent even as I stared at Baba in surprise. I swear I didn't do that, I told her, not wanting the witch to get upset and begin attacking me. But rather than get angry, Baba got up, rubbing her head, and let out a delighted cackle. Oh, now that packed a wallop. I sense a trap, I said warily. Normally I'd applauded you for being cautious, so much better than those meatheads my brother likes to teach, but now I need you to focus and stop worrying. She got back up on her crystal ball, little feet kicking wildly as she struggled to get upon it. As she did so, I let the focus on my evil magic disappear, leaving me with just my own hands and nothing else. Ah, there we go, Baba said before looking at me. Show me your good magic. She had seen it several times already, but I knew she was leading to something, so I flexed my hand, and watched as white magical energy burst out, flaring and flowing about my arm violently, roiling like a boiling pot. That's new, I said dumbly. Beforehand my good magic had been very similar to the aura that Goku's ki gave off, only much smaller and more contained. But now it was racing along my arms like tidal waves, thrashing violently and without purpose. Ha ha! Baba exclaimed, clapping her hands. Yes. Yes. You know what is going on. Not at all, Baba declared, and my good magic disappeared as I stared at her in shock. Your good and evil magic aren't behaving at all like they should. She cackled before zooming over to grab my hands, looking them over. Good magic tends to remain close to the body, flickering like a flame that warms. Yours is a tsunami, barely contained destruction. Evil magic likes to spread out like a fog, infecting. Yours clings to you and is protective. It's like they swapped styles. She smiled a gappy grin. Oh, you are going to be so interesting. Thanks, I said, feeling very much like a bug under a microscope. This could affect entirely what kind of mage you end up becoming, she said, not caring about my discomfort. Or, what color you might end up being. Color? I asked. Of course. Magic users are classified by what type of spells they use and how they use them with their magic. The former gives the title, the latter the color. She puffed up a bit. I, for one, am an ebony fortune witch. Ebonies are about finding out how to use magic that normally can't be used for a spell to work. Evil magic for one-day revival spells, for example. Sapphire is all about control and domination, be it of themselves or of others. Ivory are purists. Don't be an ivory, they are boring and only want to follow the rules. Scarlets focus on the study of their magic to grow it in others. They don't ever cast a spell on themselves, instead wanting to power up everything else around them while they are pure. Orange are all about the impossible and limit breaking. There is a reason why the Dragon Balls are orange, after all. Golds are similar to scarlets but internal, the improvement of oneself, seeking to increase their own powers through rituals and spells and potions. Emeralds focus on life and nature, treating their own magic like a garden that must be cultivated, while violets tend to be far more destructive. A violet, if they are having problems with their magic, will seek to hack that part of their magical self away and start again, or push themselves to destruction if it means glory and achievement. Pinks are mimics who learn fast and copy from others, while browns are thieves of the worst kind. Even those that claim they are doing it for the good of others are little more than magic-stealing mongrels who try and justify their acts. What of silver? At once Baba frowned. Silver is a myth. But what is it? I asked. What do the myths say? Who cares? She snapped, suddenly rather angry despite having been in a good mood only moments earlier. It's a myth. It isn't real. We don't have time. The scroll said I could become the Silver Sorcerer. Baba froze. So I'd like to know what that means, I said. Silver can't happen. It's impossible. I pressed on. What is a Silver Sorcerer? The witch glowered for several moments. Silver, which don't exist, and you must have read the scroll of knowledge wrong, are able to merge good and evil magic together. With all the others they focus on one type of magic. You can have good orange mages and evil orange witches. Boring heroic ivory spellcasters and evil ivory demon lords. But silver is able to take their good and evil magic and blend them together, make them work as one, and thus reach levels no other magic user has ever reached. She stared at me. But it's a myth. An impossibility. Good and evil can't work together. It would be. She waved her hand about. It doesn't matter. Let's get back to work. No more distracting me from making sure you aren't a complete embarrassment. Even as I returned to buying stocks to increase my evil magic levels, my mind went to what Baba had said, and left unsaid. Good and evil can't work together. It would be chaos.